The fluorescent lights above the diner buzzed like dying wasps, their harsh glare turning everything the color of old grease. I moved between tables with practiced invisibility, my worn sneakers silent against the checkered floor, my body aching in places I'd stopped acknowledging years ago. The smell of burnt coffee and day-old fryer oil had seeped so deep into my skin that I wondered if I'd ever smell clean again. "Refill," grunted the man at table 7, not looking up from his phone. I poured without meeting his eyes. That was the trick. Be present enough to anticipate needs, absent enough that they forgot you were human. 5 years at Mel's Diner had taught me that much. 5 years of double shifts and thin tips, of managers who looked through me and customers who looked past me. I was 26 and invisible. The dinner rush had finally thinned when Sharon, the night manager, cornered me by the coffee station. Her lipstick had bled into the fine lines around her mouth, making her look older than her 40-something years. "Emily, we need to talk." My stomach dropped. I knew that tone. "The owner's nephew needs a job," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Family, you know. He starts Monday, so we're gonna have to let you go. 2 weeks severance, paid out Friday." The coffee pot trembled in my hand. "Sharon, I've been here 5 years. I've never missed a shift, never been late. It's not personal, sweetie, just business." She patted my shoulder with the same sympathy someone might show a stray dog before closing the door in its face. "You understand." I understood perfectly. I'd always understood. Understanding was what invisible people did best. The changing room smelled like cheap body spray and disappointment. I shoved my apron into my locker, my hands shaking as reality crashed over me. Rent was due in 10 days. My phone bill was already overdue. The student loans I'd been chipping away at would start defaulting within months. I had $217 in my bank account and no prospects. The November air bit through my thin jacket as I stepped outside. The city stretched before me, all glittering lights and locked doors. Beautiful and indifferent as a postcard, I stood there breathing condensation into the darkness, wondering how I'd become so forgettable that 5 years of my life could be erased with a pat on the shoulder. My phone buzzed. A text from my roommate. Landlord came by, raising rent $400. Need to talk. I laughed, sharp and bitter. Of course. Of course the universe wasn't done with me yet. My feet carried me downtown without conscious direction, past the restaurant district where people who mattered ate food I couldn't afford. Through my reflection in darkened windows, I could see what they saw. Mousy brown hair pulled into a perpetual ponytail, clothes that hung loose from skipped meals, eyes that had learned not to expect much, plain, forgettable, disposable. I ended up at Harlow's, an upscale lounge I'd walked past 1,000 times but never entered. The kind of place where the doorman's suit probably cost more than my monthly rent. Tonight, though, something drew me toward its golden glow, maybe desperation. Maybe the reckless energy of having nothing left to lose. The doorman's eyes skated over me with practiced dismissal, but before he could speak, the door opened. A couple emerged in a cloud of expensive perfume and cigar smoke, and I slipped through behind them like a shadow. Inside, the air shifted, thick with wealth and whispered secrets. Crystal chandeliers cast prisms across mahogany walls. The crowd wore their privilege like armor, laughing with the easy confidence of people who'd never worried about rent. A jazz quartet played something low and sultry in the corner, each note worth more than my hourly wage. I shouldn't have been there. My jeans and diner-stained shirt screamed imposter, but I was already inside, and something stubborn had taken root in my chest. For just 10 minutes, I wanted to exist somewhere beautiful, somewhere that didn't smell like failure. The bar stretched along the back wall, all polished brass and infinite bottles of liquor I couldn't name. I approached slowly, hyper-aware of my cheap shoes on the expensive floor, of the bartender's appraising glance that calculated my net worth in seconds. "Just water, please," I said quietly. His eyebrow lifted, but he poured without comment. The glass was heavy, crystal that caught the light like captured stars. I held it like it might dissolve, proof of my unworthiness. That's when I felt it. The shift in the room's energy, like barometric pressure dropping before a storm. Conversations didn't stop exactly, but they hushed, modulated. People's postures changed subtly, shoulders drawing back, spines straightening. I turned, drawn by the collective gravity of attention being paid to something, someone, of consequence. 3 men entered through a private entrance I hadn't noticed. The 2 in front moved like violence barely leashed, their eyes scanning the room with professional paranoia. Dark suits that accommodated shoulder holsters, hands that had broken things. But it was the man between them who stole the oxygen from my lungs. He moved like power incarnate, like gravity bent around him instead of the reverse. His suit was charcoal perfection, so precisely tailored it seemed painted on. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, sharp cheekbones, a jaw that looked capable of delivering verdicts, but it was his eyes that paralyzed me when they swept the room, dark, calculating, infinite as a starless sky. This was not a man who asked for things. This was a man who took. The crowd parted without him saying a word. The best booth in the house, the one with views of both entrances and no windows at its back, was suddenly, miraculously empty. He slid into it with the fluid grace of a predator settling into position, and one of his guards melted into the shadows while the other stood sentinel 3 feet away, hands folded, watching everything. I realized I'd been staring. Worse, I'd been frozen in place, water glass clutched in my white-knuckled grip, gawking like a tourist who'd never seen wealth before. The bartender appeared at my elbow. "You need to move along," he said quietly. "Now." Now. Something in his voice left no room for negotiation. "Before someone notices you're here." Shame burned hot in my cheeks. Of course. Even in my moment of rebellion, I was being reminded of my place. I set the glass down carefully, turned toward the door, my invisibility cloak settling back around my shoulders where it belonged. That's when it happened. My elbow caught the edge of a passing server's tray. Time slowed, crystalline and cruel, as I watched a bottle of wine, probably worth more than my security deposit, arc through the air in a perfect damning parabola. It shattered against the floor with a sound like breaking promises, red liquid spreading across white marble like accusatory blood. The jazz quartet faltered, conversation ceased, every eye in the room turned toward me, and I was no longer invisible. I was catastrophically, irrevocably seen. "I'm so sorry," I breathed, dropping to my knees, my hands uselessly trying to gather glass shards that only cut into my palms. Blood mixed with wine, pink and pathetic. "I'm so sorry. I'll pay for it. Miss." The server's voice was tight with controlled fury. "Don't touch that. Security will escort you out." 2 men materialized, their hands already reaching for my arms, and I knew with absolute certainty that this was it. This was the moment that would define the rest of my downward spiral. They'd press charges. I couldn't afford a lawyer. This would follow me, make me even more unemployable than I already was. But the hands never touched me. "Leave her." The voice came from across the room, quiet as a knife through silk. Not loud. It didn't need to be loud. It was the kind of voice that had never been ignored, that expected immediate obedience and received it. The security guards froze. The entire lounge held its collective breath. I looked up from my bleeding hands and wine-soaked knees and found myself trapped in the gaze of the man from the booth. He was watching me with an intensity that felt physical, like being pinned beneath a microscope. His expression revealed nothing. No anger, no pity, no amusement. Just an absolute, unwavering focus that made my skin prickle with primitive warning. "Bring her here," he said. "Mr. Constantine, she's just—" The manager had appeared from nowhere, wringing his hands. Did I stutter? 3 words, barely above a whisper, and the manager went pale. The guards released me. The room seemed to tilt on its axis. This couldn't be happening. Men like him didn't notice women like me except as obstacles to be removed. Yet his guard was already moving toward me, one massive hand extending in what might have been politeness or threat. With men like that, it was impossible to tell the difference. "Come," he said simply. I looked at the door, looked at my bleeding hands, looked at the wine spreading across expensive marble like my life draining away. And then, because I had no other choice, because saying no to a man who commanded rooms with his silence seemed more dangerous than whatever waited at that booth, I stood on trembling legs, and walked toward my fate. Each step felt like crossing into foreign territory. The crowd parted, but now their attention felt different. Not dismissive, but speculative, calculating. Who was I, that Constantine had called me over? What value did I possess that they'd failed to see? Nothing, I wanted to tell them. I'm nobody. You had it right the first time. But then, I was standing before his table, and up close, the danger radiating from him was even more pronounced. He smelled like expensive cologne and something darker underneath, gun oil maybe, or the particular tang of power that came from making people disappear. His guard moved me into the seat across from him with a hand on my shoulder that felt like a promise and a threat. Up close, his face was a study in controlled violence. A small scar bisected his left eyebrow. His knuckles bore the faint white marks of old fights. But his hands, resting on the table between us, were perfectly manicured, his cufflinks platinum and understated. A man who broke bones with the same hands that signed death warrants. "You're bleeding," he observed, his accent carrying the faint musical lilt of Eastern Europe. "Russian, maybe, or Ukrainian." "I'll live," I said, then immediately wanted to take it back. You didn't speak flippantly to men who made managers go pale, but something flickered in his eyes, not quite amusement, something more dangerous than that. "Your name?" It wasn't a question. "Emily. Emily Chen." "Emily." He said it like he was testing the weight of it, seeing how it felt in his mouth. "You work at Mel's Diner on 4th Street. My blood turned to ice water. How did he know that? "Not anymore," I heard myself say. "Got fired 2 hours ago." His head tilted fractionally, the gesture somehow predatory. "And so you came here, to Harlow's, to drink water you couldn't afford and feel sorry for yourself." The cruelty of his accuracy stole my breath. But there was something in his eyes, not pity, but recognition. Like he understood the particular flavor of desperation that drove people to beautiful places they didn't belong. "I should go," I said, starting to rise. "Sit." One word, gentle as a bullet. I sat. He studied me in silence that stretched like taffy, uncomfortable and endless. I could feel his guards watching, could sense the room's attention still fixed on our table like a spotlight I couldn't escape. My hands throbbed where glass had cut them, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I wondered if I was dreaming, if I'd passed out from stress, and this was some fever dream my breaking mind had conjured. "You have a gift," he said finally. I blinked. "What?" "Your voice, when you apologized." He leaned forward slightly, and I caught the full force of his attention like standing too close to a fire. Desperation, sincerity, perfect pitch. "You made every person in this room believe you would do anything to fix what you'd broken. I need someone who can do that." His eyes never left mine. Someone who can walk into a room and make people believe she's harmless, forgettable, desperate. Someone they'll underestimate. Understanding crashed over me like cold water. "You want me to spy for you. I want you to survive." He sat back, his expression unreadable. "You have 10 days before you're evicted. Student loans defaulting. No job, no prospects, no family who will help you." He paused, letting the completeness of his knowledge sink in like a slow poison. "I'm offering you a choice you didn't have an hour ago. And if I say no," the corner of his mouth lifted in something that wasn't quite a smile, "then you walk out that door and we never speak again. You find another minimum wage job, probably lose your apartment anyway, and disappear into the poverty that's been waiting for you since you were born." He leaned forward again, and this time there was something almost gentle in his voice. "Or you take my hand and never be invisible again." My heart hammered against my ribs. Every survival instinct I possessed screamed at me to run. This man was danger incarnate. Whatever he wanted me for would be illegal, immoral, probably deadly. I'd seen enough crime shows to know how this story ended, used up and discarded, or worse. But I looked down at my bleeding hands, thought about the $217 that was all that stood between me and homelessness, about Sharon's pitying smile, and the doorman's dismissive eyes and 5 years of my life erased like they'd never mattered. I thought about being invisible, and then I looked up into Constantine's dark, infinite eyes, and heard myself whisper the words that would change everything. What do you need me to do? His smile was slow, satisfied, and absolutely terrifying. Good girl, he said softly. Now let me tell you about the man who destroyed my family. The guard drove me home in a black Mercedes that smelled like leather and barely contained violence. Constantine hadn't come. Men like him didn't deliver desperate waitresses to run-down apartments in questionable neighborhoods. Instead, he'd given me a burner phone, an address for tomorrow, and instructions delivered in that quiet voice that expected obedience. 9 a.m., don't be late, bring nothing. Now I sat in my cramped bedroom, the burner phone heavy as a grenade on my nightstand, and tried to process what I'd agreed to. The cuts on my palms had stopped bleeding, but they throbbed with each heartbeat, a steady reminder that this wasn't a dream. This was real. I'd made a deal with a man whose last name alone had made the lounge manager go pale. Konstantin Volkov. I'd Googled him the moment I got home. The results were sparse, carefully curated. A few society page mentions. Philanthropist, restaurateur, import-export magnate. The kind of legitimate business ventures that looked clean on paper, but the absence of information was more telling than its presence. Nobody worked that hard to appear boring, unless they were hiding something catastrophic. I'd found one photograph, Constantine at a charity gala, devastating in a tuxedo, a blonde socialite on his arm, but it was his eyes that arrested me. Cold and calculating even in formal wear, scanning the crowd like a predator cataloging prey. What had I done? My roommate Jenna knocked softly before opening the door. She worked nights at a hospital, perpetually exhausted, perpetually broke like me. Em? You okay? I heard you come in. Fine, I lied. Just a weird night. She studied me with nurse's eyes that missed nothing. Your hands are bandaged. Broke a glass at work. Before they fired me. The words tasted bitter. Shit, Em. I'm sorry. She sat on the edge of my bed, her scrubs rustling. About the rent increase, too. I've been picking up extra shifts, but... Don't worry about it, I heard myself say. I have something lined up. A job. Good money. Her eyebrows lifted. Already? What kind of job? What kind indeed? Administrative work for a businessman. He needs someone who can handle confidential matters. It wasn't technically a lie. Constantine had said he needed someone forgettable to attend meetings, remember conversations, report back what she heard. My eyes and ears in rooms I can't enter, he'd said. My ghost at tables where wolves make deals. Jenna squeezed my shoulder. That's great. Really. I was worried. She stood, yawning. I need to sleep before my shift, but Em, be careful, okay? If something feels wrong, I will. Another lie, smooth as silk. After she left, I lay in darkness and replayed Constantine's story. He'd kept me at that booth for an hour, his voice low and hypnotic as he painted a picture of betrayal and blood. Viktor Morozov, he'd said, the name emerging like poison. 5 years ago, he worked for my father. Trusted, valued, family. His jaw had tightened almost imperceptibly. He stole $40 million from our accounts, but worse, he provided information to rivals. Names, locations, schedules. 7 men died because of what he sold. I'd watched his face as he spoke, seeing the carefully controlled rage beneath his marble exterior. Your father was one of the 7. 3 words, flat and final. Understanding had settled over me then. This wasn't business. This was blood. Victor disappeared, Constantine had continued. Went underground with enough money to buy new identities, new lives. We've spent 5 years looking. His eyes had locked onto mine. 2 months ago, we found him. He's living in Chicago under the name Victor Morrison. Respectable businessman, real estate developer, engaged to a senator's daughter. And you want me to? He's hosting a charity auction next week. Private, exclusive. The kind of event where rich people congratulate themselves for tax-deductible compassion. His lips had curved in something cruel. He's looking for an assistant, someone to help coordinate his philanthropic ventures, someone harmless and desperate and grateful for the opportunity. The trap had been elegant in its simplicity. I would apply, get hired, gain access to his office, his computer, his secrets. Find evidence of the money he'd stolen, the people he'd destroyed. Become Constantine's weapon, disguised as a harmless girl who'd never mattered to anyone. And when you have what you need, I'd asked, then justice is served, and you walk away with $50,000 and a clean slate. $50,000, enough to pay off my loans, get a real apartment, maybe even go back to school, enough to stop being invisible. I'd looked into his eyes and known, with absolute certainty, that justice in Constantine's world didn't look like courtrooms and due process. It looked like shallow graves and closed caskets. I'm not a killer, I'd said quietly. I'm not asking you to be. He'd leaned back, his expression unreadable. I have people for that. I'm asking you to be what you've always been. Invisible, forgettable, beneath notice. The difference is this time, someone will be watching. Someone will see you. And God help me. That had been the hook. Not the money, though I needed it desperately, but the promise that I would matter to someone. That my existence would have weight and purpose beyond carrying coffee to people who didn't see me. Now, lying in darkness, I wondered if that made me irredeemable, if wanting to be seen was justification enough for what I was about to do. The burner phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Sleep well, Emily. Tomorrow you become someone new. I didn't sleep. I watched the ceiling and thought about choices and consequences, about invisible girls and the dangerous men who finally noticed them. The address Constantine had given me led to a townhouse in the Gold Coast, the kind of neighborhood where even the air tasted expensive. The guard from last night, I'd learned his name was Dimitri, met me at the door, his face impassive as carved stone. Miss Chen, come. Inside, the townhouse was all dark wood and leather, decorated with the stark minimalism of someone who understood that true wealth didn't need to announce itself. I followed Dimitri through rooms that smelled like coffee and power, my cheap shoes silent on hardwood floors. Constantine waited in what appeared to be a study, standing before floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. He wore dark slacks and a black shirt. No jacket, the sleeves rolled to his elbows. Even dressed down, he radiated that same dangerous authority. He turned as I entered, and I felt the weight of his attention like a physical thing. Emily, good. You're on time. He gestured to a chair. Sit. We have work to do. The next 3 hours were a crash course in calculated deception. Constantine produced a laptop and pulled up Victor's website, Morrison Development, all glass towers and corporate responsibility statements. Victor himself smiled from the About page, silver-haired and distinguished, wearing respectability like an expensive suit. He's changed, I observed. Had work done. Extensively. Cheek implants, nose job, chin augmentation, different hair color, colored contacts. But underneath, Constantine's finger traced Victor's jaw on the screen. Same man. Same monster. He pulled up the job posting. Executive assistant needed for philanthropic ventures. The requirements were suspiciously vague, the pay surprisingly generous. A trap disguised as opportunity, which was ironic, considering I was walking into a different trap entirely. You'll apply using this resume. Constantine handed me papers. Sarah Mitchell. Recent graduate, eager, naive. You worked in hospitality. True enough. References all check out. You created a whole identity. I create what I need. He studied me, head tilted. We'll need to work on your appearance. You're too forgettable as you are. The words stung, even though they were true. I thought forgettable was the point. Forgettable, not invisible. Victor needs to notice you enough to hire you, trust you enough to let you close. Then you fade into the background. He circled me slowly, assessing. Better clothes. Your hair down, properly styled. Makeup. Enough polish to suggest competence without threatening his ego. He made a call, speaking rapid Russian. Within minutes, a woman arrived. Irina, silver-haired and elegant, who looked at me with the critical eye of a sculptor facing raw marble. Come, she said, her accent thicker than Constantine's. We make you beautiful. The transformation took hours. Irina led me to a bedroom suite I hadn't known existed, where racks of clothing waited like soldiers. She stripped away my diner-stained identity piece by piece, replacing it with silk and cashmere and perfectly tailored wool. You hide, she said, not unkindly, as she worked. Behind bad clothes, bad posture, no more. Now you stand straight. You look people in eyes. You smile like you have secrets. She taught me how to move differently, shoulders back, chin up, steps that conveyed quiet confidence instead of apologetic invisibility. How to shake hands firmly, make eye contact, speak with the kind of measured assurance that suggested competence. My hair, released from its eternal ponytail, fell in waves past my shoulders. Irina trimmed and shaped it, added subtle highlights that caught the light. Makeup followed, not obvious, but transformative. My eyes, always my best feature, became luminous. My cheekbones appeared from nowhere. The pale, tired waitress disappeared, replaced by someone who looked almost elegant. When she finally let me see myself in the mirror, I didn't recognize the woman staring back. "Better," Constantine said from the doorway, making me jump. How long had he been watching? Much better. He moved into the room, and Irina melted away like smoke. Suddenly we were alone, and the space felt smaller. He circled me slowly, inspecting Irina's work, and I forced myself to stand still under his scrutiny. "Yes," he said finally. "Victor will hire you. You're exactly what men like him want. Pretty enough to look at, professional enough to trust, seemingly harmless enough to ignore." He stopped in front of me, close enough that I could smell his cologne. "Do you understand what you're walking into, Emily? You want me to spy on a dangerous man. I want you to survive in a wolf den without bleeding." His eyes held mine. "Victor isn't just a thief. He's paranoid, violent, and very intelligent. If he suspects you for even a moment, you won't make it out. Then why risk me? Why not send someone trained? Because trained people smell like predators. They carry themselves differently, watch differently. Victor would spot them immediately." He reached out, and I flinched before I could stop myself. His hand froze, then continued its path, adjusting the collar of my new blouse with impersonal precision. "But you're prey. It's written in every instinct you have. He'll never suspect prey of hunting him." The words should have insulted me. Instead, they felt like truth, cold and sharp and impossible to argue. "I need to know something," I said quietly. "When this is over, when you have what you need, will you kill him?" Constantine's expression didn't change. "Does it matter?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because I need to know what I'm really agreeing to. I need to know if I'm helping to execute someone." He studied me for a long moment, and something shifted in his eyes, not softening exactly, but acknowledging. "Victor murdered 7 men. He destroyed families, orphaned children. He's living in luxury built on blood money while my father is in the ground." His voice remained quiet, controlled. "What would you call that, if not an execution already?" "The law." "The law?" Now his smile was sharp as broken glass. "The law is for people with clean money and expensive lawyers. Victor has both. He'll never see the inside of a courtroom, let alone a cell." He stepped closer, and I felt pinned by the intensity of his focus. "I'm offering you a choice, Emily. Help me or walk away. But don't stand here and pretend the world is fair. You know better. You've been invisible your whole life because the world is built by wolves for wolves. Sheep just survive in the margins." He was right. God help me. He was right. $50,000, I said, and I walk away clean. No connections, no obligations. Agreed. And I don't pull any triggers. I don't hurt anyone directly. You're the scout, not the soldier. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal? I looked at his hand. Elegant, dangerous, offering me a devil's bargain wrapped in necessity. I thought about my empty bank account, my vanished job, 5 years of invisibility. I thought about Victor's smile on that website, about stolen money and murdered men. I thought about being seen. I placed my hand in his, and his fingers closed around mine like a verdict. Then let's begin, Constantine said softly. Tomorrow, you apply for the job. In 1 week, you'll be inside his operation. And in 1 month, Victor Morozov will pay for everything he's taken. He didn't release my hand immediately. Instead, he turned it over, examining the bandages on my palms from last night's broken glass. "These will scar," he observed. "I know." "Good." His thumb brushed over the bandage with surprising gentleness. "Scars remind us that we survived, that we're stronger than whatever tried to break us." Then he released me and stepped back, the moment of unexpected intimacy evaporating like it had never existed. "Dimitri will take you home. Study Victor's file tonight, every detail. Tomorrow you become Sarah Mitchell. And Emily Chen?" He paused at the doorway. "She disappears until this is finished. No contact with anyone who knew her. Complete isolation. For how long?" "However long it takes." His eyes met mine one final time. "Welcome to my world, Emily. Try not to drown." After he left, I stood in that expensive bedroom wearing clothes that cost more than I used to make in a month, and wondered if I'd just made the best or worst decision of my life. The reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger. Someone confident. Someone who mattered. Someone who'd just agreed to dance with wolves. The interview was scheduled for Thursday afternoon at Victor's downtown office. I spent 3 days preparing, memorizing every detail of Sarah Mitchell's fabricated life until I could recite it in my sleep. Where she went to college, her favorite restaurant, the name of her childhood dog. Constantine had been thorough. The identity was airtight, backed by real documents and traceable history. "Lie close to the truth," he'd instructed during one of our preparation sessions. "Your hospitality experience is real. Your desperation is real. Your need to please, to be useful. That's all real. You're not playing a character. You're just editing your history." Now I stood outside Morrison Development, wearing a tailored navy dress that Irina had selected, my hair styled in soft waves that made me look professional but approachable. My hands had stopped shaking an hour ago. The bandages were gone, leaving thin red lines across my palms that I'd covered with concealer. The building was glass and steel, aggressively modern. Inside, the lobby sparkled with the kind of cleanliness that required constant maintenance. I gave my name, Sarah Mitchell, to the receptionist, who smiled with practiced warmth and directed me to the 14th floor. The elevator ride felt eternal. I counted my breaths, centered myself the way Constantine had taught me. "Fear is useful," he'd said. "It keeps you sharp. But panic makes you sloppy. Control the fear. Make it your weapon." The doors opened onto an office suite that screamed new money trying to look like old money. Dark wood, leather furniture, abstract art that was probably expensive but felt soulless. Another receptionist, older this time, looked up from her computer. "Sarah Mitchell?" "Yes." "Mr. Morrison will see you shortly. Please, have a seat." I sat, crossed my ankles the way Irina had taught me, and waited. From here I could see into the main office through glass walls. Victor Morrison now, sat behind an enormous desk, talking on the phone. Even from a distance, I could see what Constantine meant. The man had been rebuilt from scratch. Distinguished silver hair, warm smile, expensive suit. He looked like someone's beloved grandfather, not a murderer who'd stolen $40 million. The man who'd killed Constantine's father. My stomach twisted, but I kept my face neutral. "Prey," I reminded myself. "Your prey. Harmless and grateful and beneath notice." "Miss Mitchell?" The older receptionist, her nameplate said Margaret, stood. "Mr. Morrison will see you now." I followed her into the office, and Victor rose with the kind of practiced charm that came from years of manipulation. Up close I could see the subtle signs of surgery. Skin pulled too tight at the temples, a jawline that didn't quite match the age in his hands. But his smile was warm, his eyes kind. Wolves dressed like sheep, that's what made them dangerous. "Sarah, wonderful to meet you." His handshake was firm, his voice carrying just a hint of Eastern European accent beneath American smoothness. "Please, sit. Can Margaret get you anything? Coffee? Water? Water would be lovely, thank you." As Margaret left, Victor settled back into his chair, studying me with the same assessing look I'd seen on Constantine's face. But where Constantine's gaze felt like being catalogued, Victor's felt like being measured for usefulness. "Your resume is impressive," he said, tapping the papers before him. "Hospitality management, excellent references. Though I notice you left your last position rather suddenly. The first test. I'd prepared for this. The owner's nephew needed a job, family politics. I allowed a hint of bitterness to color my voice. 5 years of loyal service, and I was let go with 2 weeks severance. That must have been difficult. It was a wake-up call. I'd been comfortable, and comfort makes you complacent. This opportunity, working in philanthropy, making a real difference. It's exactly the fresh start I need. Victor smiled, and I saw the predator beneath the grandfather mask. He liked my answer, liked the combination of professional disappointment and eager gratitude. I was exactly what he'd been looking for. Someone skilled enough to be useful, desperate enough to be loyal. Tell me, Sarah, what do you know about Morrison Development? I'd memorized the website, every press release, every carefully crafted piece of his new identity. You focus on urban renewal projects, with strong community partnerships. Last year, you developed 3 mixed-income housing complexes, and you're currently working on converting the old Riverside Warehouse District. You also established the Morrison Foundation, which provides scholarships for underprivileged youth. You've done your homework, due diligence. If I'm going to represent your foundation, I want to understand your vision. And what do you think that vision is? Another test. I met his eyes, channeled every ounce of earnest sincerity I possessed. Redemption through action, building something meaningful, giving back to communities that have been overlooked. I paused, let vulnerability show. I think we all want to believe our lives can mean something more than just surviving. Something flickered in Victor's eyes. Satisfaction, maybe, or recognition. He'd built his entire new identity on the concept of redemption. A man who'd reinvented himself, left behind whatever shadowy past he'd had, now devoted to doing good. The narrative was perfect, because everyone wanted to believe in second chances. You're hired, he said simply. I blinked, genuinely surprised. Just like that? I've interviewed 7 candidates. You're the first who looked me in the eye and saw what this work actually means. He stood, extending his hand again. $60,000 a year, full benefits starting Monday. Margaret will handle the paperwork. Welcome to the team, Sarah. As I shook his hand, I felt the trap close around both of us. He thought he was hiring a desperate girl who'd be grateful and loyal. He had no idea he'd just invited a wolf spy into his den. The burner phone rang the moment I was 3 blocks from Victor's building. Constantine's voice, calm and controlled. Well? I got the job. Start Monday. Silence then. Good. Come to the townhouse. Now. Dimitri was waiting with the Mercedes. The drive took 20 minutes, each one winding my nerves tighter. I'd succeeded in the first step, but that only meant the real danger was about to begin. Constantine waited in the study, and this time he wasn't alone. A man stood beside him, tall, lean, with cold eyes and the same predatory stillness as Dimitri. This was someone who'd killed before, I realized. Probably recently. Emily, this is Alexei. Constantine gestured. He'll be your shadow. You won't see him, but he'll be close. If anything goes wrong, he extracts you. Nothing will go wrong, I said, more confidently than I felt. Something always goes wrong. Constantine moved to the windows, looking out over the city. Victor survived this long by being paranoid. He trusts no one completely. You'll need to earn his confidence slowly, carefully. One mistake, one inconsistency, and he'll start digging into Sarah Mitchell's background. The background is solid. You said so. It is. But if he looks too closely, if he's motivated enough, even the best cover can crack. He turned back to face me. How did he seem? I thought about Victor's warm smile, his kind eyes, the way he'd talked about redemption and second chances, like someone who's very good at believing his own lies. Constantine's mouth curved slightly. Accurate. He's convinced himself he's a different man now, that his past is buried and irrelevant. That's his weakness. He wants so badly to be Victor Morrison that he's forgotten Victor Morozov's survival instincts. What exactly am I looking for? Financial records. Communications with anyone from his old life. Evidence of where he hid the money he stole. Constantine pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and handed it to me. These are the accounts we know he accessed. If you can find transactions, transfers, anything that connects Victor Morrison to Victor Morozov, we have him. I studied the screen, a series of numbers and dates that meant nothing to me. I'm not a forensic accountant. You don't need to be. Just copy whatever you find to this. He handed me a small USB drive, innocuous as a keychain. Plug it in, it does the rest, 30 seconds, and it's done. The drive felt heavy in my palm, and if I get caught, you won't. But something in his eyes said otherwise. Alexei will be monitoring. If there's trouble, he'll create a distraction. You run and leave you without your evidence? I'd rather lose evidence than lose you. The words hung in the air between us. I looked up, found him watching me with an intensity that made my pulse quicken. Not attraction exactly, though God help me, he was devastating to look at, but something else. Something that felt like ownership. Why? I asked quietly. Why do you care if something happens to me? I'm just a tool, useful until I'm not. He moved closer, and I resisted the urge to step back. You're useful because you're honest, because 5 years of being invisible didn't make you cruel or hard. Because when you looked at Victor, you saw through his mask immediately. He stopped inches away, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Most people see what they want to see. You see what's real. That's rare. That's valuable. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. He stepped back. The moment breaking. You start Monday, 4 days. Memorize the account numbers. Practice your cover story. Sleep as much as you can. Once you're inside, we go dark. No contact unless absolutely necessary. Victor will be watching you closely the first few weeks, learning your patterns. You can't give him any reason to doubt. The next 4 days passed in a strange fugue state. I moved back to my apartment, but it felt like visiting someone else's life. Jenna was working constantly, barely home. I'd told her the administrative job had fallen through, but I'd found something better. Executive assistant to a philanthropist. She'd been happy for me, too tired to ask questions. I spent my time studying Victor's files, memorizing the details of his new life. Constantine had compiled an impressive dossier. Every public appearance, every business deal, every person in Victor's orbit. I learned about his fiancée, Senator Whitmore's daughter Caroline, blonde and beautiful and from old money. I learned about his business partners, his competitors, his schedule. But more than that, I learned about Victor Morozov, the man he'd been before the surgery, before the new name. Constantine had photos, grainy surveillance shots showing a harder face, crueler eyes. Victor at 25, already rising in the Volkov organization. Victor at 30, Constantine's father's right hand. Victor at 32, days before he stole $40 million and vanished. He was like a son to my father, Constantine had said, his voice empty of emotion. My father trusted him with everything. Secrets, money, family. And Victor sold it all. I studied the photos until I could see past Victor's reconstructed face to the monster underneath. Until I understood why Constantine's eyes went cold and distant when he said the name. This wasn't just business. This was betrayal of the deepest kind. Sunday night, I stood in my bedroom laying out my clothes for tomorrow. First day at Morrison Development, first day inside the Wolf's Den. The burner phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Remember, your prey. Let him think he's the predator. And Emily? Don't trust anything he says. Victor is a world-class liar, I typed back. So are you. The response came immediately. Yes, but I don't lie to you. I stared at those words for a long time, wondering if they were true. Wondering if anything about this was true, or if I was just another pawn in a game between two predators. But in the morning, I dressed in Sarah Mitchell's clothes, styled my hair the way Irina had taught me, and became someone new, someone useful, someone seen. Even if the eyes watching me belonged to wolves. Morrison Development's office was already buzzing when I arrived Monday morning. Margaret greeted me warmly, walking me through a maze of cubicles to a small office near Victor's. You'll be working closely with Mr. Morrison, she explained. Managing his schedule, coordinating foundation events, handling correspondence. He prefers a hands-on approach with his assistant. My office was modest, but professional. Glass walls that let me see Victor's space, a desk with a new computer, supplies neatly organized. Margaret spent 2 hours walking me through systems and protocols, introducing me to other staff members whose names I committed to memory. Everyone seemed genuinely nice, committed to the work. Normal people doing normal jobs, completely unaware their boss was a murderer. Victor appeared just before lunch, looking distinguished in a charcoal suit. "Sarah, settling in?" "Yes, thank you. Margaret's been incredibly helpful." "Excellent. I have a lunch meeting, but when I return, let's discuss the scholarship gala. It's in 3 weeks, and I'll need you to take point on final arrangements." He smiled that warm, grandfatherly smile. "I have a feeling you're going to be invaluable." After he left, I sat at my desk and breathed. The first day was about establishing presence, learning routines, becoming part of the landscape. Victor needed to get used to seeing me here, trusting that I belonged. The office itself was an open floor plan, deliberately transparent, I realized. Hard to have private conversations when everyone could see everyone else. Victor's office had glass walls on 3 sides. Only his private bathroom and a small conference room offered any privacy. That would be a problem. I spent the afternoon organizing files, familiarizing myself with donor lists and event schedules. On the surface, everything looked legitimate. Morrison Development really did build housing for low-income families. The foundation really did provide scholarships. Victor had built an empire of good works, each one another brick in the wall that separated him from his past. But somewhere in this building was evidence of that past. Account numbers, communications, something that connected Victor Morrison to Viktor Morozov, something that would bring Konstantin's vengeance down on his head. I just had to find it without dying in the process. At 5 p.m., Victor stopped by my desk. "First day surviving?" "More than surviving. I love it already." "Good. Tomorrow we'll dive deeper into the gala planning. For tonight, go home. Rest. You've earned it." He hesitated, then added, "Sarah, I'm glad you're here. I think you're exactly what this organization needs." As I watched him walk away, I wondered if he said the same thing to everyone he was about to destroy. Outside, dusk was falling. I walked 3 blocks before the black Mercedes appeared, Dmitri at the wheel. He didn't speak, just drove me to the townhouse where Konstantin waited. "Tell me everything," he said the moment I entered. So I did. Every detail, every conversation, every observation about the office layout and security. Konstantin listened with absolute focus, occasionally asking questions, his mind clearly cataloging everything for future use. "You did well," he said finally. Victor trusts easily in the beginning. It's later, when he starts to care, that he becomes dangerous. When he starts to care, Victor bonds with his assistants, treats them like family. It's part of his redemption fantasy, surrounding himself with people he can trust, can protect. He'll start confiding in you, sharing his worries, asking your opinion. Konstantin's eyes met mine. That's when you'll have access, when he thinks of you as an ally, not an employee. How long? 2, maybe 3 weeks, then we make our move. He stood, poured 2 glasses of whiskey from a crystal decanter and handed me one. "To the first day of your new life." I took the glass, our fingers brushing. "You mean Sarah Mitchell's life?" "No," his gaze held mine. "I mean Emily Chen's, the woman who finally stopped being invisible." We drank, and I tasted smoke and peat and the particular flavor of deals made with devils. Outside the windows, the city glittered like broken glass, beautiful and sharp and full of hidden edges. 2 weeks passed in a careful dance of deception. I became Sarah Mitchell so thoroughly that Emily Chen felt like a distant memory, a ghost I'd left behind. Every morning, I arrived at Morrison Development by 8:30, coffee in hand, smile ready. Every evening, I reported to Konstantin, documenting each conversation, each observation, each tiny crack in Victor's armor. And there were cracks. Victor was exactly as Konstantin had predicted, warm, paternal, gradually drawing me into his confidence. He started asking my opinion on donor strategies, trusting me with passwords to scheduling systems, leaving me alone in his office while he took calls. The scholarship gala was in 1 week, and I'd coordinated every detail, proving myself indispensable. "You're a godsend, Sarah," he'd said that morning, genuine warmth in his voice. I don't know how I managed before you arrived." The words had twisted something in my chest. Because underneath the monster who'd murdered 7 men, there was a human being who seemed to genuinely believe in the work he was doing, who looked at scholarship recipients with real pride, who talked about giving people second chances like he actually meant it. It made hating him complicated. "You're getting soft," Constantine observed that evening. We sat in his study, as had become routine, reviewing the day's intelligence. "I can see it in your face when you talk about him." "I'm not soft. I'm just saying he's not entirely evil." Constantine's voice went cold. "He murdered my father, Emily. Shot him in the chest and left him bleeding on a warehouse floor. Is that not evil enough for you?" I flinched at the razor edge in his tone. "I'm just reporting what I see." "Then see better." He stood abruptly, pacing to the windows. The city lights reflected in the glass, turning him into a silhouette. "Victor is a performance artist. Every kind word, every generous gesture is part of his masterpiece, the reinvention of Victor Morozov into Victor Morrison. Don't confuse the art for the artist." "I'm not confused. I know what he is. Do you?" He turned, and his eyes held something dangerous, "because you're starting to sound like someone who might warn him, who might give him a chance to run." The accusation stung like a slap. "I'm risking my life for your revenge. Don't question my commitment. It's not revenge. It's justice." He moved closer, and I forced myself not to retreat. "There's a difference." "Is there? Because from where I'm standing, they look identical." We stared at each other, tension crackling between us like static electricity. Then Constantine's phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He glanced at the screen, his expression hardening. "Victor's having a private meeting tomorrow night, after hours in his office. Just him and someone named Petrov." My stomach dropped. "Petrov? Are you sure?" Alexei picked it up on the surveillance. "Why?" "Because Petrov is Victor's accountant, the one who handles his personal finances, separate from the business." I'd seen the name in Victor's private contacts, flagged it as potentially significant. If they're meeting after hours, then they're discussing something they don't want on record. Constantine's eyes gleamed. "This is it, Emily. This is your chance. Whatever files Victor shows Petrov, whatever they discuss, that's where the evidence will be. I can't exactly sit in on their meeting." "No, but you can stay late. Say you're catching up on gala preparations." Victor's office has a conference room attached. The only room with solid walls, remember? If he takes Petrov there, you won't hear anything. But his computer will be unattended. He pulled out the USB drive I'd been carrying for 2 weeks. 30 seconds. That's all you need. My hands went cold. If he comes back, he won't. The conference room door doesn't have a window. Once they're inside, they're committed to privacy. You'll have time. And if something goes wrong, Alexei will be in the parking garage. Any trouble you run, he'll extract you. Constantine gripped my shoulders, forcing me to meet his eyes. "You can do this, Emily. I know you can." But his certainty felt like weight pressing down on me, because this wasn't surveillance anymore. This was active theft. And if I got caught, Victor wouldn't just fire me. Men like Victor, men like Constantine, didn't call the police when someone betrayed them. They made problems disappear. The next evening, I stayed late, as planned. Most of the staff left by 6, and by 7, the office was nearly empty. I sat at my desk, laptop open, pretending to review catering contracts while my heart hammered against my ribs. Victor arrived at 7:30, looking tired but pleased to see me. "Sarah, you're here late." "Just finalizing the gala details. I want everything perfect." I smiled, channeling Sarah Mitchell's eager professionalism. "You know me, a bit of a perfectionist. That's why you're so valuable." He checked his watch. "I have a meeting in a few minutes. Shouldn't take long. You'll be all right?" "Of course. I'll probably head out soon myself." Petrov arrived 10 minutes later, a nervous man in his 50s, carrying a leather briefcase like it contained nuclear codes. Victor greeted him with careful warmth, and I watched from my peripheral vision as they disappeared into the conference room, the door closing with a solid click. I waited exactly 90 seconds. Then I stood, smoothed my dress, and walked to Victor's office on legs that felt like water. The space felt different, empty, larger, colder, full of shadows. His computer sat on the desk, logged in, the screen showing a spreadsheet I didn't understand. My hands shook as I pulled out the USB drive, and for a moment, I just stood there, frozen by the magnitude of what I was about to do. This was the point of no return. Once I plugged in that drive, once I stole Victor's secrets, I became what Constantine needed me to be. A weapon. A tool of vengeance. There would be no going back to invisibility, no pretending I was just an innocent girl caught in circumstances beyond her control. I thought about Constantine's father, bleeding on a warehouse floor. About 7 men dead because Victor had sold them out. About $40 million and all the lives it had destroyed. I thought about being seen. I plugged in the drive. The software activated immediately. A small progress bar appearing on the screen. 15 seconds. 20. I counted each heartbeat, each breath. My eyes locked on that conference room door. 25 seconds. The bar crept toward completion with agonizing slowness. 30 seconds. The drive beeped softly. Done. I yanked it out, shoved it in my pocket, and turned toward my desk. The conference room door opened. Time crystallized. Victor stood in the doorway, looking directly at me, his expression unreadable. Behind him I could see Petrov gathering papers. Victor's eyes flicked to his computer, then back to me. Sarah. His voice was carefully neutral. I thought you'd left. Just grabbing my phone. I held it up, hoping he couldn't see my hands trembling, left it charging at my desk. I see. He studied me for a long moment, and I felt his suspicion like a physical weight. Then he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Drive safe. It's late. You too, Mr. Morrison. Have a good evening. I walked out of that office with measured steps, fighting every instinct that screamed at me to run, through the empty cubicles, to the elevator, down to the parking garage where Dmitri waited in the Mercedes, engine already running. I climbed in, and he drove. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. He'd been watching the surveillance feed. He knew how close that had been. Constantine was waiting at the townhouse, Alexei beside him. The moment I walked in, Constantine knew. He saw you. He saw me leaving his office. I don't know if he suspects anything. Give me the drive. I handed it over with shaking hands. Constantine plugged it into his laptop, and we waited while the software unpacked its stolen payload. Files began appearing on the screen, spreadsheets, bank statements, encrypted documents. Constantine's eyes moved rapidly across the data, and slowly his expression changed. This is it, he breathed. Transactions going back 6 years. Accounts in the Caymans, Switzerland, Singapore. And look. He pulled up a scanned document, old and faded. Transfer authorization, $40 million. Signed by Victor, dated 3 days before my father died. The evidence was damning, conclusive. Victor Morozov was Victor Morrison, and every dollar he'd built his new life on was stained with blood. So what happens now? I asked. Constantine saved the files. Backed them up, his movements precise. Now we wait. If Victor suspects you, he'll move. We'll see it in his behavior, his communications. If he doesn't, he looked up, his eyes dark. Then in 6 days, at the gala, we end this. The gala? With 300 people there? With 300 witnesses to Victor's generosity and redemption? Where better to reveal the monster beneath? His smile was cold. I've arranged for federal investigators to attend. Once they see this evidence, Victor won't be able to run fast enough. And when he tries... He didn't finish, but he didn't need to. Constantine's people would be waiting. You should stay here tonight, he said. It's not safe for you to go home. Victor doesn't know where Sarah Mitchell lives. No, but if he looks, he'll find that address is fake. He'll start asking questions. Better you're here, where I can protect you. The word hung between us, protect. Like I was something valuable, something worth keeping safe. Irina appeared with food I couldn't eat, and showed me to a bedroom I'd never seen, elegant, feminine, with clothes already hanging in the closet in my size. As if Constantine had known I'd end up here. As if he'd planned for this from the beginning. I sat on the bed, still wearing Sarah Mitchell's professional dress, and tried to process what I'd done. The evidence was recovered. Victor's fate was sealed. In less than a week, Constantine would have his justice, and I would have $50,000 and my freedom. So why did I feel like I was drowning? A knock on the door. Constantine entered without waiting for permission, carrying a glass of whiskey. You should drink this. I should go home. Emily, don't. I stood, suddenly angry. Don't tell me I'm safe here. Don't tell me you're protecting me. I did what you asked. I got your evidence. This deal is almost done. Is that what you think this is? A transaction? What else would it be? But even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. Knew it had stopped being a simple deal weeks ago, when he'd started looking at me like I mattered. When I'd started caring whether he approved of my work. He moved closer, setting the glass on the nightstand. You think I don't see you struggling with this? Hating Victor but sympathizing with him? Wanting justice but questioning the cost? I don't. You do. You're not like me, Emily. You still believe the world can be good, that people can change. That's what makes you dangerous to yourself. His hand came up, brushing a strand of hair from my face with unexpected gentleness. But it's also what makes you remarkable. I should have stepped back, should have maintained distance, reminded him this was business, but his touch felt like being seen, really seen, for the first time in my life. Not as prey, not as a tool, but as someone who mattered. What happens after? I whispered. After Victor pays, after I take my money and disappear. Do I just go back to being invisible? Is that what you want? I don't know what I want anymore. His thumb traced my cheekbone, and I saw something shift in his eyes. Something that looked almost like vulnerability. When this is over, you'll be free. Truly free. No debt. No desperation. You can be anyone you want. And if I don't know who that is, then I'll help you figure it out. He leaned closer, and I could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body. You're not invisible anymore, Emily. You'll never be invisible again. The kiss, when it came, felt inevitable, like gravity finally winning. His mouth was firm, demanding, tasting like whiskey and dark promises. I kissed him back, pouring 2 weeks of tension and fear and strange, twisted desire into the contact. His hand slid into my hair, tilting my head back, deepening the kiss until I was drowning in sensation. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. His forehead rested against mine. And for a moment, he was just a man, not a monster in expensive clothes. This complicates things, I breathed. Yes. He didn't sound sorry. Victor saw me in his office. He might be suspicious. I know. If he is, if he runs, then we adapt. That's what predators do. His lips brushed my jaw, sending shivers down my spine. But Emily, if Victor threatens you, if he even looks at you wrong, I will burn his world to ashes and salt the earth. Do you understand? I understood. Understood that I'd become something precious to him, something worth protecting, and that terrified me more than any of Victor's potential suspicions. Because men like Constantine didn't protect things. They possessed them. I need to sleep, I said, pulling away. Tomorrow I have to face Victor and pretend nothing's changed. Can you do that? I thought about 5 years of being invisible. 5 years of pretending I didn't exist. Yes, I can do that. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Sleep. I'll be down the hall if you need me. After he left, I sat on the bed and touched my lips where he'd kissed me. This was supposed to be simple. Help Constantine. Get paid. Walk away. But nothing about this was simple anymore. I'd fallen into bed with a wolf, and the terrifying part was how much I'd wanted to. The next morning, I returned to Morrison Development, wearing fresh clothes from Irina's mysterious wardrobe and a mask of professional calm. Victor was already in his office when I arrived, and his eyes tracked me as I settled at my desk. Sarah. Good morning, Mr. Morrison. Late night last night. I hope the drive home was safe. Perfectly safe, thank you. I met his eyes, channeling every ounce of innocent sincerity I possessed. Did your meeting go well? Very well. But something in his expression had changed. a calculation that hadn't been there before. Actually, I wanted to discuss something with you. Do you have a moment? My blood went cold, but I smiled. Of course. He gestured me into his office, closed the door, the first time he'd ever done that, and indicated I should sit. The chair felt like an electric chair. Victor settled across from me, his posture relaxed, his eyes sharp. You've been with us almost 3 weeks now, he said. And you've been exceptional, truly. The gala is going to be flawless because of your work. Thank you. That means a lot. Which is why I'm confused. He leaned forward slightly. I had an interesting call this morning, from my security company. Apparently there was unusual activity on my computer last night. Files accessed, data transferred to an external device. Around the time you were here, the room tilted. I forced myself to breathe, to think. I don't understand. I wasn't anywhere near your computer. No? Because the timestamp says 8:47 p.m., and the security cameras show you in my office at 8:46. He knew. God help me. He knew. I was getting my phone, I said, hearing the tremor in my voice and hating it. From my desk. I didn't touch your computer. Victor studied me, and I saw the exact moment his suspicion crystallized into certainty. Saw the warm grandfather mask slip, revealing the predator beneath. Who sent you, Sarah? His voice went soft, dangerous. Or should I call you by your real name? The world narrowed to Victor's cold eyes and the sound of my heart hammering. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I was trapped. His office door closed, his body blocking the exit, and somewhere in this building, probably his guards already moving into position. I don't know what you're talking about, I said, but my voice shook. Don't insult me. Victor stood slowly, and suddenly the distinguished philanthropist disappeared entirely. This was Victor Morozov, the man who'd betrayed an entire organization, who'd killed 7 men to cover his tracks. I've survived this long by trusting my instincts, and every instinct I have is screaming that you're not who you claim to be. My mind raced. The panic button. Konstantin had given me a panic button, sewn into the lining of my jacket. One press, and Alexei would come. But Victor was between me and the door, and I'd never reach it in time. Sarah Mitchell, Victor continued, pulling out his phone. Recent graduate, excellent references, except I had someone dig deeper this morning. Your references? All traceable to shell companies. Your university records? Perfect. But only going back 5 years, like someone created them retroactively. He showed me the screen, photos of me. Not as Sarah, but as Emily. At Mel's diner, serving coffee, invisible and anonymous. Emily Chen, fired from a diner 3 weeks ago, disappeared the same night. And then Sarah Mitchell appeared, with a resume perfectly tailored to what I needed. Ice flooded my veins. Victor. So I'll ask you again. He moved closer, and I saw the monster Konstantin had described. Who sent you? What do they want? My hand found the panic button through the fabric of my jacket. I pressed it once, hard, praying Alexei was monitoring. I needed a job, I said, buying time. I lied on my resume because I was desperate. That's all. I'm not. Don't. His hand shot out, gripping my wrist hard enough to bruise. I know a spy when I see one. The question is whether you're law enforcement or something worse. The door burst open, but it wasn't Alexei. It was Dmitri, Konstantin's guard, moving with lethal grace. Victor barely had time to turn before Dmitri's fist connected with his jaw, sending him sprawling. 2 of Victor's security rushed in, and suddenly the office exploded into violence. Run! Dmitri shouted at me. I ran. Through the office, past shocked staff members, toward the stairwell because the elevators would be too slow. Behind me I heard shouting, the sounds of fighting. My heels caught on the stairs and I kicked them off, taking the steps 2 at a time in bare feet, 14 floors between me and escape. 8 floors down, heavy footsteps echoed above me. Victor's men, pursuing. I pushed harder, lungs burning, muscles screaming. 4 floors. 2. The lobby doors burst open and I stumbled through, nearly colliding with Margaret, who screamed. Sarah, what's happening? No time to answer. The black Mercedes was already there, Alexei at the wheel, passenger door open. I dove inside and he accelerated before I'd even closed it, tires squealing. "Dmitri," I gasped. "We'll handle it. Put this on." He tossed me a bulletproof vest. "What? Why would I?" The rear window exploded. Glass rained over me as Alexei swerved violently. In the side mirror, I saw a black SUV pursuing us, someone leaning out the window with a gun. This wasn't corporate security. This was Victor's real muscle, the men who'd helped him disappear 5 years ago, who'd protected him ever since. "Get down," Alexei barked. I crouched as low as I could, the vest heavy and awkward. More gunshots, the sharp crack of bullets hitting metal. Alexei drove like a man possessed, weaving through traffic, running lights. My phone buzzed. Konstantin calling. "Are you hurt?" His voice was tight with controlled fury. "No." Victor knew. He figured it out. "Alexei is..." Another gunshot cut me off. "Where are you?" "Heading west on Madison. They're right behind us. I'm sending backup. Stay on the line. Emily, listen to me. You're going to be fine. Do you hear me? You're going to be fine." But his voice sounded like a lie, because we were racing through downtown Chicago with armed men shooting at us. And fine seemed like a concept from another universe. Alexei made a sharp turn into an underground parking garage, killed the lights, and accelerated into the darkness. The SUV followed, but Alexei knew every inch of this city. He navigated through tight spaces, between concrete pillars, emerged on a different street entirely. "Lost them," he said grimly. "For now." 20 minutes of evasive driving later, we pulled into a warehouse district I didn't recognize. The building looked abandoned, but when Alexei punched in a code, a garage door rolled open, revealing a sophisticated operations center inside. Armed men materialized from shadows, and there, in the center of it all, stood Konstantin. He reached my door before I could open it, pulled me out, and before I could speak, he was checking me for injuries with hands that shook almost imperceptibly. "You're bleeding." "Glass. It's nothing. It's not nothing." His voice cracked slightly. "Victor tried to kill you. He tried to question me. His men tried to kill me. There's a difference. Not to me." He cupped my face, and I saw something raw in his eyes. Fear. "If anything had happened to you, but it didn't. I'm here. I'm alive." I grabbed his wrists, grounding both of us. "Konstantin, Victor knows. The gala, your plan. It's all compromised." "I know." He pulled back, his mask of control sliding back into place. Dmitri called. He got out, but Victor's already moving, pulling money, burning evidence, preparing to run. His jaw tightened. "We have maybe 12 hours before he disappears again." 12 hours? That's not enough time to... It has to be. He turned to the men assembled. "Locations?" One of them, a woman with severe features and tactical gear, pulled up a screen. "He's got 3 potential exits: private airfield in Gary, Indiana, boat slip in Michigan, and a safe house in Milwaukee. We're monitoring all 3. He'll split his resources," Konstantin said. "Decoys at 2 locations, real escape at the 3rd. He's done this before. So how do we know which one is real?" I asked. Everyone looked at me. Then Konstantin smiled, slow and dangerous. "Because you're going to tell us." 1 hour later, I sat in a bare room with only a phone and a script Konstantin had written. My hands trembled as I dialed Victor's number, the private one he'd given me for emergencies. He answered on the second ring. "Emily." Hearing my real name from his lips sent chills down my spine. "Mr. Morrison. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to save it." "Where are you?" "A motel on the south side. They let me go. Said I was more trouble than I was worth." I let my voice crack convincingly. "I don't know what to do. They're going to kill me. Victor, please, you have to help me." Silence. I could almost hear him calculating, weighing whether this was a trap. "Who sent you?" "I don't know his real name. Russian guy. Scary as hell. He said you stole from his family. He made me spy on you. Said he'd kill me if I didn't. Volkov." The name emerged like a curse. "Konstantin Volkov. I think that was it, yes. Please, I'm not part of this. I was just desperate. And he offered money, and I didn't think..." "Where's this motel?" I gave him the address. A real motel where Konstantin's people had secured a room. I can give you information. Everything I know about Volkov's operation. His location, his men, everything. Just promise you'll protect me. Another pause. Stay there. I'm sending someone. Don't leave that room. Understand? Thank you. Thank you so much. I hung up, looked at Konstantin through the one-way glass. He nodded. The bait was set. He'll send scouts first, he said, entering the room, to verify you're really there, really alone. Then he'll decide whether to extract you or eliminate you, and if he decides to eliminate me, he won't get the chance. His hand found mine, squeezed. This ends tonight, Emily, one way or another. The motel room was exactly as depressing as expected. Stained carpet, flickering TV, the smell of desperation and cheap air freshener. I sat on the bed in jeans and a hoodie, looking every inch the terrified girl I was pretending to be. Konstantin's people had wired the room with cameras and microphones. Alexei was in the room next door, Dmitri across the hall, 6 more men positioned around the perimeter. I wasn't actually bait. I was the trap's trigger. 2 hours crawled by. Then a knock, soft, almost gentle. Sarah? It's me. Open up. Victor's voice. He'd come himself. I opened the door, and there he stood. No guards, no security, just Victor in casual clothes, looking grandfatherly and concerned. For a moment, I almost believed it. Almost forgot he'd ordered men to shoot at me. Thank God, I breathed, letting relief flood my voice. I thought... He pushed inside, closed the door, and before I could react, his hand was around my throat, slamming me against the wall. The concerned grandfather mask shattered completely. Did you really think I'd fall for this? His grip tightened. You stupid girl. You led me right to a trap. Black spots danced across my vision. I clawed at his hands, but his strength was terrifying. No, I didn't. Where's Volkov? Is he here? Did you think I wouldn't notice the surveillance? The armed men pretending to be maintenance workers? He leaned close, his breath hot on my face. I've been running from people like him for 5 years. You think I don't know when I'm being set up? The bathroom door exploded outward. Konstantin emerged like violence personified, and suddenly Victor was the one slammed against the wall, Konstantin's forearm across his throat. I collapsed, gasping, as the 2 men faced each other, predator and predator, all pretense stripped away. Hello, Victor, Konstantin said softly. Did you miss me? Victor's eyes widened with recognition and fear. Konstantin, you're alive. Disappointed? You sent your men to kill me too, didn't you? Along with my father and 6 others, but I survived. I always survive. He pressed harder, and Victor choked. The question is, will you? Wait, Victor gasped. The money, I can give it back. All of it. Plus interest, 50 million. 60. Just let me go. You think this is about money? Konstantin's voice dropped to a whisper. You betrayed my father, the man who treated you like a son, who trusted you with everything, and you sold us out for 40 million pieces of silver. I had no choice. Fedorov was going to kill me. He said if I didn't... You always have a choice. My father chose loyalty. Those 6 men chose loyalty. They died for it. You chose to live like a coward. Victor's face purpled. Please, Konstantin, please. I'll do anything. I know you will. Konstantin released him slightly. That's why you're going to walk out of here with me, quietly. And you're going to tell federal investigators everything about your money laundering, your old connections, your entire operation. You're going to spend the rest of your life in prison, Victor, and every day, you'll remember that I put you there. Prison? Victor laughed, slightly hysterical. You're not going to kill me? Death is too easy, too quick. Konstantin smiled coldly. I want you to suffer. Want you to lose everything you built. Watch your reputation crumble. Spend decades in a cell thinking about the man you could have been. That's justice. Federal agents burst through the door then. Real ones with badges and warrants. Konstantin had called them the moment Victor confirmed he was coming. Everything he'd said was recorded, admissible. Victor's confession to his involvement with Fedorov, his implicit admission of guilt, it was enough. They handcuffed Victor, read him his rights. As they led him toward the door, he looked at me. You're just like me, Emily, a survivor who did what she had to. He'll use you up and throw you away, just like I would have. No, I said quietly. I'm nothing like you, because I know the difference between surviving and betraying. After they took him away, the room felt enormous and empty. Constantine stood by the window, watching the federal cars disappear. I approached slowly, my throat still aching from Victor's grip. Is it over? I asked. Yes. Victor will spend the rest of his life in federal prison. The evidence we gathered showed connections to 3 different criminal organizations. He'll be lucky if he survives a year inside. He turned to face me. You're free, Emily. $50,000 as promised, plus another 50 for nearly getting killed. I don't want your money. His eyebrows lifted. What? I mean, I'll take it. I'm not stupid. But that's not what I want. I moved closer, my heart hammering. What happens now? With us? There is no us. I'm a criminal, Emily. You're an innocent girl who helped me once. Take the money, disappear, build a real life. Stop. I grabbed his jacket. Stop deciding what I want, what I need. I'm tired of being told what my life should look like. You don't know what you're asking for, don't I? I've spent 3 weeks in your world. I've seen what you are, what you do. And I'm still here, aren't I? I held his gaze. You said I'd never be invisible again. Were you lying? No, then see me. Really see me. Not as prey, not as a tool, not as someone who needs protecting. See me as someone who chose this, who chose you. His hands came up to frame my face, and I saw the war in his eyes, between what he wanted and what he thought I deserved. I'm not a good man, Emily. I'm not looking for a good man. I'm looking for an honest one, and you've never lied to me. Not once. If you stay, if you choose this, there's no going back. My world is dangerous, violent. You'll never have a normal life. I've never wanted normal. I wanted to matter. And with you, I do. I stood on my toes, bringing my lips close to his. So stop trying to save me from myself and just kiss me. He did. And this time, it wasn't desperate or frantic. It was a promise. A choice we were both making, eyes open, knowing exactly what it meant. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. You're insane. Probably. Is that going to be a problem? Absolutely. But he smiled, genuine and unguarded. Stay with me tonight. Tomorrow we figure out the rest. 6 months later, I stood in Constantine's penthouse, overlooking the city where I'd once been invisible. The girl who'd served coffee at Mel's diner felt like a stranger now, someone I'd been in another life. I'd used part of my money to pay off my loans, helped Jenna with rent until she found a better job, sent some to my estranged mother without expecting a response. The rest sat in an account, insurance against a future I was no longer sure I wanted, because I'd found something more valuable than money or safety or normalcy. I'd found purpose. Constantine's organization wasn't just about revenge and violence. There were legitimate businesses, investments, people who depended on him for their livelihoods. And somehow, improbably, I'd found my place in it. Not as arm candy or a kept woman, but as someone useful. Someone who could read people, spot deceptions, navigate social situations with the same invisibility that had once been my curse. I was his ghost again, but this time, I chose to be. Deep thoughts? Constantine appeared behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. Just remembering how we met. You called me prey. You were. You're not anymore. He kissed my neck. Now you're dangerous. Is that a compliment in your world? It's the highest compliment I can give. I turned in his arms, studying his face. 6 months, and I was still learning him. The dry humor hidden beneath the cold exterior, the fierce loyalty to his people, the way he looked at me like I was something precious and terrifying all at once. Do you ever regret it? I asked. Not killing Victor when you had the chance? No, prison is worse for men like him. Death would have been mercy. His thumb traced my cheekbone. Do you? Regret helping me? I thought about Emily Chen, invisible waitress. About the moment in Harlow's when I'd spilled wine and changed my life forever. About choosing to be seen, even when being seen meant danger. Not for a second. Good. He kissed me softly. Because I have another job for you. High-stakes negotiation, possibly dangerous, definitely illegal. When do we start? Tomorrow. Tonight I just want you. I smiled against his lips. Then take me. Later, lying in his bed with the city lights casting shadows across the ceiling, I thought about wolves and prey, about visibility and choices. I'd been thrown away by society, deemed forgettable and worthless, but I'd found someone who saw value in what others dismissed. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was seen, known, wanted, and I'd chosen to be dangerous. The girl who'd been a waitress they threw away had become someone new, someone who mattered. Someone who'd learned that sometimes the most powerful choice you can make is deciding who gets to define you. I chose myself, and then I chose him. And in the darkness of a penthouse overlooking a city full of people who still didn't see me, I finally understood what freedom felt like. It felt like being exactly who I wanted to be. It felt like home.